That morning began like any other. In the frozen wilderness of Siberia, where endless pine forests stretch beyond the horizon, an old man quietly stepped out of his small wooden cabin. No traffic, no voices, just the wind, and a silence so deep it almost felt unnatural. He lit a fire, his hands trembling slightly in the cold morning air. Everything felt familiar, ordinary, nothing worth remembering. Until he looked up. At first, it was just a small light, but within seconds, it grew, brighter than the sun itself. A blazing fireball tore across the sky, leaving behind a streak that seemed to burn through the heavens. There was no warning, no sound before it appeared. Then, everything exploded. A blinding flash, a thunderous roar unlike anything he had ever heard. The ground shook violently, as if the earth itself was roaring. He was thrown off his feet, the air turning hot and suffocating. And then, silence. A heavy, unsettling silence. What kind of force could unleash such power and leave no clear trace behind? That silence didn't last long. Within seconds of the blast, the land seemed to awaken in chaos. A shockwave tore through the forest with unimaginable force, sweeping across the landscape like an invisible storm. Towering trees bent, then snapped, falling like matchsticks. The old man struggled to get back on his feet, but the ground beneath him still trembled. The air had turned unnaturally hot, filled with the smell of burning and fine dust. He didn't understand what was happening, and he wasn't alone. Hundreds of miles away, others witnessed the same terrifying moment. Some said the sky itself had caught fire. Others described a massive column of flame descending from above, followed by a blast so powerful it shattered windows and threw them to the ground. In distant villages, people were awakened by a sound like thunder, but deeper, longer, and far more unsettling than any storm they had ever known. Children cried, animals panicked. Entire communities were thrown into confusion with no explanation. And then, something even stranger followed. For several nights afterward, the sky refused to go dark. From Siberia all the way to parts of Europe, a strange glow lingered across the night sky. In some places, people could read outside at midnight, without a lamp. The clouds seemed to shine. The sky took on a pale, silvery color, almost unreal. No one knew exactly what they were looking at. There was no obvious impact, no massive crater, no clear trace of a meteor resting on the ground. Only a devastating event that happened in an instant and vanished, leaving behind more questions than answers. That day, June 30th, 1908, would go on to become one of the strangest mysteries in modern history. And perhaps the most unsettling part of all is that no one truly saw everything that happened in the sky that morning. After that day, things slowly began to settle. The sound of the explosion faded, the strange light disappeared, but what remained on the ground was far from easy to explain. When people finally managed to reach the center of the event, they expected to find something familiar, a massive crater the kind you would imagine from something falling out of the sky. But that's not what they found. Instead, they discovered something almost impossible. An entire forest, millions of trees, had been completely flattened. The trunks lay scattered across the all, pointing away from a single invisible center. From above, it looked like a vast circle, as if an unseen force had struck from above and then spread outward in every direction. But the strangest part was right at the center. The trees there were still standing. Not alive, but not fallen either. Their branches were gone, their bark scorched. What remained were tall, blackened trunks, stripped bare, like silent pillars left behind after a fire. No crater, no impact site, no clear trace of anything that had ever touched the ground. Only the aftermath of a tremendous force that seemed to have exploded in the air. Witnesses and later investigators were deeply puzzled by the pattern of destruction. It didn't match anything they had seen before. If a meteor had struck the Earth, it should have left a mark. But here, there was nothing. It was as if whatever came from the sky never actually reached the ground. And so the questions began. If nothing crashed into the Earth, what could have unleashed such devastating power? And if it exploded in the air, where did it go? No large fragments, no solid evidence. Only what nature was forced to remember: fallen trees, scorched trunks, and a mysterious emptiness at the center of it all. An emptiness where the answer should have been. That emptiness wasn't just in the forest. It existed in human understanding as well. For years after the event, the area was largely forgotten, not because it didn't matter, but because it was too remote, too wild. At the time, Siberia wasn't a place where expeditions could easily reach. It would take nearly 2 decades before anyone seriously returned to search for answers. When the first explorers finally made their way into the region, they faced more than just a mystery. They faced the harshness of nature itself. Swamps, insects, freezing conditions. Everything seemed determined to keep the truth hidden. But eventually, they reached the place where it all began. And what they saw left them stunned. The fallen trees were still there, as if time had stood still. The circular pattern of destruction remained clearly visible. And at the center, where a crater should have been, there was only silence. One of the leading explorers moved deeper into the central zone, carefully documenting every detail. The direction of the fallen trees, the level of scorching, the shape of the land. None of it matched any known impact event. There were no signs of a massive object buried underground. No clear evidence of metal or rock from space. Only the aftermath of an explosion that had occurred in the air. The more they studied it, the more unsettling the conclusion became. This event didn't behave like anything humanity had previously understood. It didn't follow familiar rules. And that made the mystery even deeper. Because when you can't find solid evidence, you can't be certain of anything at all. And when the questions began to outweigh the answers, people did what they've always done. They formed theories. At first, the explanation seemed simple. A meteor. It made sense. A massive object from space entering Earth's atmosphere at incredible speed, then exploding before it ever reached the ground. An airburst, powerful enough to flatten millions of trees, yet leaving no crater behind. This could explain the circular pattern of destruction. It could explain why the center wasn't punched into the ground, but instead scorched. But if it was a meteor, where were the fragments? Why weren't there large rocks scattered across the Alard? Why was there no clear physical trace left behind? That's when another idea emerged. Maybe it wasn't rock at all. Some researchers suggested the object could have been a small comet, made mostly of ice and dust. As it entered the atmosphere, it would have heated rapidly, then exploded and almost completely vaporized, leaving very little behind. No crater, no solid remains. Only overwhelming force. It sounded more convincing, but even that theory had its problems, because even ice should leave behind some chemical or material evidence. And for years, the proof remained uncertain. So when science couldn't provide a complete answer, imagination stepped in. Some believed the event wasn't natural at all. They spoke of something from beyond Earth. A craft from somewhere unknown, malfunctioning and exploding in the sky. No debris, because its technology was far beyond anything we could understand. It sounded like science fiction. But when faced with a mystery that refuses to be solved, even the strangest ideas begin to feel possible. There were other theories, too. A failed energy experiment, an unknown physical phenomenon, something humanity at the time simply wasn't equipped to understand. The problem was, each theory explained part of the story, but none of them explained everything. And that's what makes this event so unusual. More than a century has passed. Science has advanced tremendously. Modern technology can track objects in space, observe distant worlds, and simulate cosmic impacts with remarkable precision. Yet Tunguska still stands as an incomplete answer. Most scientists today lean toward the airburst meteor explanation. It fits best with what we know. But most likely is not the same as certain. And perhaps that uncertainty is what keeps this story alive. Because sometimes what draws us in isn't the answer. It's the feeling that something out there still hasn't been fully understood. And perhaps it's that uncertainty that keeps this story from ever truly ending. Because Tunguska isn't just a mystery of the past. It's a warning for the present. Imagine something like this happening today. Not over a remote forest in Siberia, but above a crowded city. Tall buildings, millions of people. An ordinary morning, suddenly turning into disaster. An explosion in the air. No warning, no time to prepare. A blinding flash, a shock wave moving in an instant. Windows shatter, structures collapse, people panic. The same force that flattened millions of trees, if unleashed over a populated area, would be almost unimaginable. And the truth is, it's not impossible. Today, scientists know that Earth is constantly exposed to objects from space. Most of them are small, burning up before they ever reach the ground. But not all of them. Some are large enough to create air bursts, just like Tunguska. We just don't always notice them. In a way, Tunguska feels like a quiet warning. An event that happened in a place with very few people, almost as if the world was spared from something far worse. Today, humanity watches the skies more closely. Modern telescopes scan for objects that could come dangerously close to Earth. But no matter how advanced our technology becomes, some things remain beyond our control. And maybe that's why Tunguska still matters. Not just because of what happened, but because of what could happen. And perhaps that's what makes Tunguska still echo to this day. Not just as a moment in history, but as a story that never truly ended. After everything we know, and everything we still can't explain, one thing remains clear. On that morning, something appeared in the sky. Something powerful enough to shake an entire region. Bright enough to turn night into day. Mysterious enough to keep people debating for over a century. But the strangest part is that no one saw the whole story. Only fragments. A light crossing the sky. A thunderous explosion. A forest flattened. And an empty space where the answer should have been. Maybe it was just a meteor, a rare accident from space. Or maybe it was something we still don't fully understand. And perhaps that's exactly why this story endures. Because we are drawn to mysteries without clear answers. The kind that make us pause, look up at the sky, and wonder. Out there, in the vastness above us, how many things are happening that we don't even notice? Tunguska isn't just a story about the past. It's a quiet reminder that our world is still full of the unknown. And sometimes, the question matters more than the answer.